It is 7 o'clock. I will call to order the Tuesday, June 7th City Council meeting. We will start with roll call.
Councilman Becker.
Here.
Councilman Hartwick. Here. Councilman Johnson.
Here.
Councilman Schultz.
Here.
President Scheer.
Here. Agenda item 3, public hearings. This evening we have none. Agenda item 4, public comment. A reminder that the City Council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon. That would be name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. I take it we have nobody signed up in person.
Did you sign up to speak at the podium, sir? Okay, thank you.
Did not. All right. This will be a first call for public comment, both in person and on Zoom. Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Seeing and hearing none, we will move along. Agenda item 5 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda that is outlined is presented for action by the City Council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. 6A is the recognition of 30 years as a Tree City USA for the city of Fort Atkinson.
Yes, so the city of Fort Atkinson has been a tree city for 30 years. And to celebrate, we have received a special plaque and a special outdoor road sign, at least one, that will be placed at an entrance to our city, recognizing the 30th year. As you all know, we recognize Arbor Day every year, and that is part of becoming a tree city, as well as some other, couple other elements, including designation of funds for trees. And I believe there are 1 or 2 other ones that the council has approved through that Arbor Day proclamation. But today we have an award, and we have Public Works Superintendent Tom Williamson here to accept that award. And President Scheer, if you would present, I will take a quick picture.
No problem.
Congratulations, sir. Such an honor.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, agenda item 7, resolutions and ordinances. 7A is the second and possible third reading of an ordinance amending section 1-14 of the City of Fort Atkinson Municipal Code relating to voting wards and boundaries.
Thank you. So this is the second, potentially third reading. What this does is renumber our orphan ward 11, which is Banker Road area, renumbers it to Ward 10. Right now we have wards 1 through 9, no Ward 10 and a Ward 11. When we had adopted, when we had annexed in a piece of property on Highland Avenue, that was provided as Ward 10. That was adopted, and then we were in the midst of annexing Banker Road, so that was assigned 11. When the redistricting was done, 10 kind of got swallowed up as it was just one property, swallowed up to an adjacent Ward 6. So we're back to wards 1 through 9, leaving Ward 11 kind of a solo all by itself. So the Wisconsin Elections Commission and the county clerk's office and the county land records office had asked if we would consider renumbering it to Ward 10. So it does not affect any voters. It's more or less for documentation and kind of eases the process going forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. The council has the option to suspend the rules, waive the third reading of the ordinance and adopt, or they can move the ordinance to a third reading, and it would be back on the June 21st meeting.
Feel like we probably asked all the necessary questions and got any necessary clarifications at the last meeting. And given that this doesn't have any impact really to our residents or voters or no financial impact, I can't imagine we would receive any additional community feedback. So I move to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of the ordinance amending section 1-14 of the City of Fort Atkinson Municipal Code relating to voting wards and boundaries.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye. That motion carries.
I then move to adopt the ordinance amending section 1-14 of the City of Fort Atkinson Municipal Code relating to voting wards and boundaries.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? This will also be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye. That motion carries. Agenda item 8, reports of officers, boards, and committees. 8A is the city manager's report.
Thank you. We're now entering the third week of closure of the Robert Street Bridge. The project seems to be moving along well, and from what I can see out my window every day, the vehicular traffic is getting used to the 4 lanes on Main Street. So there's fewer horns than the first, fewer beeps than the first week of that. And we've gotten some good feedback from residents about minor adjustments we can make to make things more friendly to motorists and pedestrians. And to the extent possible, we've completed those items as well. I would like to congratulate Doug Yandry. He recently retired after 25 years in the Public Works Department. And I would also like to congratulate Amy Lutzke on 24 years retirement, 24 years at the library. We'll have them both in at a future council meeting to recognize them with their plaques, but I just wanted to make that announcement because they are officially retired now. I would also like to officially welcome Jed Drager to the city as the new building inspector and zoning administrator. His first day was May 31st and he's hit the ground running. So we're very pleased with that choice, and he's doing a great job so far. I would also like to congratulate Sarah Wayert and Tom Williamson on their graduation from the 2022 Project Lead program. I'm sure you recall their class project, which was switching out some of our parking lot lights to LEDs, and that is a really great project, and Tom really took the lead on that. So that was fabulous, and congratulations to both of you. We also had an employee appreciation picnic on Saturday at Rock River Park. The weather was a bit chilly, but I do want to thank the council members and all city staff who attended. It was a fun event, and we will continue to do some sort of employee appreciation into the future to recognize all of the hardworking staff here we have at the city. We did receive a draft of the 2021 audit this late last week. We met with the auditors today to review that draft, and we expect that it will be presented to the council and the public on July 5th. And another reminder that on July 1st, the city will be switching over to our new .gov domain name and our new VoIP phone system, which will require new phone numbers. We've issued a few press releases about it. We have some other communications planned to inform the public. Not everybody contacts the municipal building or their favorite municipal department on a weekly, monthly, or even yearly basis. So we know we won't be able to reach everybody, but we hope that our continued efforts will communicate this information clearly so that people can contact us. The new website, the domain name, the .gov domain website and email addresses will be seamless. In fact, in probably 2 weeks, you might start, people who communicate with city staff might start getting an email back with a .gov domain, and but both emails and both websites will remain active for at least a year to make sure that we're getting all of that communication and people can find the website easily. And then I also wanted to mention that starting tomorrow, I will be out of the office through Friday at the Wisconsin City County Management Association Conference. This is a joint conference with Wisconsin managers as well as Illinois managers. So it's a really great opportunity to learn from my colleagues about new initiatives and other things that are happening in the field of local government management. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. 8B is the extraterritorial survey report.
Yeah, so if council recalls, we have a 3-mile extraterritorial survey boundary. Council provided the option for the city manager and myself to approve those if they're within the 1.5 to 3 mile boundary outside of the city limits. Anything within the 1.5 mile boundary comes to the planning commission. We had 2 such CSMs that came up this quarter. One was the Prucker CSM and the other was a CSM on my property. We did take that one to the planning commission to make sure that there wasn't any perceived conflict of interest there, and they approved that. Really pretty standard CSMs, but we want to make sure that council's made aware of these quarterly, just to keep in the loop, so to speak. Any questions on this?
Thank you for the official process on yours.
Thank you very much. I got the next agenda item.
9 is unfinished business. 9A is the review and possible action relating to a construction oversight amendment to an existing design contract for the 2022 water main and street rehabilitation program with Ruckert and Milky for an amount not to exceed $104,848.
Yeah, so this is a kind of 2 items here, an update on the project and also this construction oversight contract. The construction oversight contract that's before you is continuing with the design firm Ruckert and Milky. They are essentially going to have someone on site managing this project throughout the summer. If you recall, the last time we had a project like this of this size was Rockwell Avenue, and we had a similar contract in place with MSA, who had done the design at that time. And we were able to actually staff a second person for that project that was an intern from the city to offset some costs. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that in this situation. So it is a fairly expensive contract to have someone out there managing the project on a daily basis and watching the project go in the ground. It does pay big dividends. It still doesn't help with the price tag. So, but the $104,000 I expect will be less than that is my anticipation. Ruckert Milky has done a very good job of managing their budgets appropriately. In fact, I believe we're under on the design portion of this project. So I don't expect us to get to that level unless something significant happens on the project, which certainly could happen. But at present, it appears to be fairly cut and dry. The second thing that I wanted to update you on was the project itself. I had hoped, I had more than hoped, I had sincerely really wanted to get sidewalks into this project. That's an area of the city where we have a lot of folks. We have 2 large elementary schools in that area. We have a lot of residential areas with no sidewalks at all in that area, and a fairly high concentration of families. And so when we bid the project, we had intended to put sidewalk on both sides of this work. We bid that as an alternate, knowing that we could run into a situation where we didn't have enough money. I had hoped, when I spoke with you last about this, to be able to reduce the size of the project, simply take it back by a block or so. My conversations with the CDBG funding folks at the federal level indicated that we could not do that. We were at exactly our 50% threshold required to receive the funding, and the funding is a total of $362,000, which is a small percentage on a very large project, but $362,000 is still nothing to scoff at. So unfortunately, we're going to have to pull the sidewalk out of the project. It will be constructed on Peterson Street. That street is a full reconstruct. So we're actually removing all the curb and gutter, doing some significant work to the base. So that portion of the road that is under the asphalt, because it was in pretty rough shape. So we will have sidewalk at that particular street, but the others will not. I'll continue to look for funding opportunities for this. I tried very hard. I thought the VIL money, the bipartisan infrastructure law money that was coming down provided an opportunity for us because the DOT found out about it about 6 months into the year that they needed to spend it. And so, well, I'll get the camera up and running for those of you online later. But anyway, we weren't able to make that work. I really thought that was going to be just a well-timed situation. However, there are opportunities going through 2026 for us to continue to submit applications for additional sidewalk funds. So I'll continue to look at that and try to do a little bit better on that front. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that done this time. I also wanted to walk you through the budget, and that's why I threw this graph up here. Council has all of this on there within the packet, and if those of you at home are looking, it was in the packet as well. But just to give you an idea of how this breaks out, the left side includes the expenses for the project. These are summarized expenses. So construction has about 140 different bid items. But the construction total is on the left, the base sidewalk option. That was the option. I don't have the numbers in there, but that was the option that we unfortunately were unable to fund. And then on the left in gray is the available funding. So you kind of have an expense and a revenue situation here. Each item that we have within the construction is broken down among 5 accounts. So I'll give you an example. Sidewalks. Sidewalks don't really affect anything other than the road. And so that is paid for entirely by the road account, the one on the far right that you see there. Storm, on the other hand, so think of curb and gutter. Curb and gutter does 2 things. It provides stormwater conveyance, so it allows us to get the water off the road and into the pipes and eventually onto these different facilities we have to treat the water, but it also holds the road edge. So the curb and gutter is something that we can split among accounts, not only stormwater, but the road. Water main is another example of that. We have to dig through the road to replace the water main. So there's a component of road repair or road improvement that happens with a water main project. So we charge about 30% of the overall cost of the road work to the water utility because we're replacing the road above the water main. So in a nutshell, that's how this all sort of breaks out. So you can see the various accounts. I will note the water has 2 accounts that you'll see there, water main and water hydrants and services. This is required by the PSC, and I think in a good way. So as part of our rate case where we ask the ratepayers, our residents, to pay more money so we could do water main replacement annually, instead of waiting for as long as we needed to get the coffers built up to do a project. This shows exactly where that water main money goes. So we break it out by the water main portion itself and charge the water main construction to that account. Hydrants and services are sort of ancillary to the water main. And so they're treated differently and tracked differently from an accounting perspective. That green number down in the bottom right-hand corner is what we have for balance in our road account. That's $155,000. I'm still figuring out what we're going to do with that. We have a number of grant opportunities that are out currently with that bipartisan infrastructure law we put forward. I'm going to estimate about $2 million worth of grants went in last Friday, all of which require a 20% match. So that would be a likely use of that funding. But we also have some roads in town. Grove Street has come up a few times by Luther School there that are in need of some attention. So we could pivot and use that money this year to potentially take care of some of those items. So we'll have a little bit of thinking to do on that. I'd like to find out, I should know in a month or so where we're at with these bipartisan infrastructure grants that we put forward, which would help immensely. So that is the total that we had for the sidewalk option. I don't have it in front of me, but I put it in your memo. I think it was 300,000 or somewhere along those lines. So that's where we didn't have enough money. We had 150,000 and we needed 300 some thousand in order to pull the trigger on the sidewalk. So so with that, are there any questions associated with this table or anything
Can
else?
you just clarify for me? So looking at this, it looks like there's an anticipated balance of actually $557,000 in terms of total costs and available funds. And that includes a 5% contingency in there. So I'm just, if you can just clarify for me then why sidewalk would not be an
Where's the
option for funding,
557, I guess?
unless I'm reading something.
You're not
incorrectly.
reading anything incorrectly, but
Okay.
we can't charge sidewalk to the sanitary, water main, water service hydrants and stormwater accounts. So
Okay,
it would
it's not an
just be
issue of
road.
overall funds. It's an issue of not available funds in specific accounts.
Correct.
Oh,
Got it.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that's- yeah.
I was just a little confused by that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So if it was stormwater, for instance, I couldn't charge the road accounts for major stormwater infrastructure and run over the budget, if that makes sense.
And that's part of the regulations relating to utilities.
Sure, okay.
Andy, just out of just out of curiosity, and because people ask me and I never know the answer, what's like the average ballpark for sidewalk replacement costs these days? Like for a, I don't know if you want. to
We were
put
at $9 a square foot, I think is where we were at. So 4x4 is 16 times. So let's say it's like $130 per square that we see
Okay.
in there. And then that is replacing an existing sidewalk. So if we're doing a brand new sidewalk, we also have to add in the cost to dig essentially the sidewalk, place the gravel below it, and then form and pour the concrete, which would be a little bit more. So I'd say 175 for new sidewalk and maybe 130-ish for replacement of existing.
Got it. Thank you.
And Andy, I'm sorry, just for clarification, does that include labor or is that just the cost of the?
That's labor materials. Yeah.
Labor and
Just
materials.
rough numbers for conversational purposes. Yeah.
And Andy, is there any additional costs incurred of putting sidewalk in after the fact? Like, is that something that if down
No,
the road we're able to do that, it would end up being a more expensive project than if we were able to do it right now while this
Yeah.
work is being done?
it will probably be more expensive simply because of the economies of scale.
Sure.
But no, there's no, if we put it in the sidewalk now, we still had to mobilize, labor and machines to do it. There's no difference in the price or in the actual, I'm getting.
Process.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because we have everybody there doing all this other work, it would have been cheaper to do it now than coming back only to do sidewalks in the future.
And then I think my only other question is just related to the construction oversight costs. So is this not a cost that was originally planned for or accounted for, or were you just kind of waiting for final details on what that cost would be?
It was a little bit of both. So I knew that we may have to do this. I had hoped that we might have an assistant engineer on board by that time. And I had hoped that we might be able to cover some of this internally. Without that, I just don't have the capacity to take it on. I asked them for a number on this probably a month or two ago when it became apparent that I didn't think we were going to have anybody to cover it. So yeah, it was anticipated. It wasn't originally budgeted in there, but I did know that it was probably going to be coming.
And just as a follow-up, maybe this is a weird question, but what is the process if we wouldn't be able to do this? I mean, who then, is there just no one in charge of the project? Or this
No.
it seems a little odd to me that that's not automatically part of a contract that. you
Oh,
have
from
a
the
person
beginning, you
in
mean?
Charge of.
Yeah, it depends on the size. So we did water main replacement on Roosevelt and Mesmer and Zafke a couple of years ago. That was one of the last projects that we did. It was, I'm guessing here, maybe a third of the size of this. Tom and I were able to cover that between the two of us. We also had an intern on board at the time that also helped quite a bit. So between the three of us, we were able to take care of it. In this situation, I don't have a Tom and I don't have an intern. And the size of the project really requires that you have somebody on site. They logically could run 2 crews here, maybe even 3, because it's a little bit of a tight deadline. Whereas on the other project, it was simply 1 crew that was laying pipe, and everybody, after a week or so, you kind of get to know what the crew's quality of work is, and you decide very quickly whether you need to be out there all the time or whether, this situation can kind of be a pop in, a couple hours during the day. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I do know that the size of the project is going to mean that we're going to have to stay on top of things. They have some very specific deadlines that they have to meet, which means we have to make quick decisions in the field if we run into problems related to, you name it. We dig up something and suddenly there's water in the trench that we can't get out of there or something like that. We've got to figure out what to do fairly quickly. So yeah, it's just a bigger project and we just don't have the staff to cover it right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Andy, can you talk a little bit about the project timeline as well as
Yes.
communication with the residents?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. So we did get word early this week. We're going to have a pre-construction meeting on June the 15th. The contractor is anticipating starting on June the 20th. I will say anticipating, because if we get rain all of next week, I'm sure that will push them back on their existing projects that they're finishing up. There will be a letter going out to all residents explaining the project to them. That'll go out by the end of this week. To all of those folks that are affected on the, wish I had the map up here, on all those roads. The letter will be a little vague because it's going out before we have the pre-con meeting. So I can't answer simple questions like where are we starting and then where do we go next? You know, is my road first or is my road last? But I will communicate that in the letter. And I'll also set up a project website like we have for Robert Street Bridge and put my contact info there for answering questions. They should be able to get in and out of their existing homes and driveways, except for very small periods of time when the trenching or the new water main is actually in front of their house being installed, or when we're hooking up the new water main to the old laterals. We'll have to have some temporary shutoffs, but we're very good at alerting the residents by door carding and things like that. So they'll get a lot of information about that. There will be a lot of questions, but hopefully they'll come through to me in my office, and we'll be able to field those as they come in. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Well, bringing it back full circle, this was about a lot of things, but mainly about that construction oversight amendment that we have in front of us.
Well, I appreciate the detailed explanation, and it's too bad we can't get those sidewalks done right now, but hopefully
We'll
that'll
figure it
come in
out.
the future. I will go ahead and make the motion to authorize the city manager to sign the construction oversight amendment to an existing design contract for the 2022 water main and street rehabilitation program with Rukert and Milky for an amount not to exceed $104,848.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Agenda item 10 is new business. 10A is the review and possible action relating to alcohol beverage license applications for the licensing period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. To date, we have 43 licenses that have applied for renewal. One license is a new that the license committee reviewed earlier tonight, and that'll be presented to council at the June 21st meeting. So of the 43 renewals we had, nothing that was alarming with any of them. Typically mid-year, what we may see is an agent change. Agent is typically the manager of the business, whether it's an owner, if it's a local business, or I use Quick Trip for an example. They have multiple locations, so they have a manager and agent per location. Sometimes we'll see agent change mid-year. Premise description changes. The only adjustment that the council reviewed earlier this year was Blodgett. They had kind of shortened and tightened up their premise. So it just included the store. It did not include any of the garden area. I am very happy to be able to review any questions that anyone has on the licenses. There wasn't anything that was kind of standoffish on these. The police department did perform their compliance checks. They like to call them compliance checks because it's not responding to an issue or a call. It's going out and making positive connections with everyone that's at the bar, whether working or patrons, and just a nice visit to say hello and follow up and be able to explain why they're there. Just checking to see if the license was posted. Just making sure that everyone's aware, to make sure everyone is of age. And then just monitor good practices for running the businesses. Anyone have any questions on them or the quotas or?
I
exit
just want to
licenses?
commend you on the thorough job you do for the city. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
How many do we have open, Michelle?
Well, what type?
Well, that's true,
So,
yeah.
yeah, so I guess the one that is the most sought after is a Class B, which B stands for bar, so you consume it on price. A Class B intoxicating liquor, that's the one that's most sought after. That is a quota is established by population. So it's few and far between when we're able to increase that. We have 2 available for a Class A intoxicating liquor, which council, if you remember earlier this year, you had adjusted the quota on that. That allows for consumption away from the premise. So that would be for gas stations and grocery stores. Class A fermented malt beverage. So again, it's for beer and you consume away from the property. We have 5 of those available. There are not quotas on a Class B fermented malt or beer license. A Class B would allow for on-site consumption. So we don't have a quota for that. So if somebody wanted to open a business and sell beer, they could. We have those licenses available. Also, there's no quota on a Class C wine license. A Class C wine license you can get in combination with a Class B beer license. The only stipulation is that the receipts for the sales have to be 50% or more food related. So you have to have more or less a menu or to offer more product than beverages. So for example, Mr. Brew's Tap House, Carla's Catering, Pizza Hut chose not to renew their license, but same situation. They would allow the sale of beer and wine for on-site consumption as their receipts were more 50% or more than food and less alcohol sales. The fees are established by state statute, so we charge the max that we can for those.
However, I will just make a comment that we recently got a bill for the publication fees, and the newspaper has increased those costs substantially. So we will look to the 2023 fee resolution to increase the publication fee to the applicants for these so that we can publish in the newspaper, which is required by statute.
Yep, thank you for that. The publication is required to be 3 consecutive days. And the publication lists all of the businesses, the type of license, the name, the address, location, and all. It's been $25 for existing renewals to pay their annual fee. Last year, it cost about $400 for that notice. This year, it was over $1,500 for that notice. So we'll have
Put this in the paper.
to put this in the newspaper. Yeah, so the price more than tripled. So we'll have to adjust that for next year, but as we have a daily newspaper, it's required to be published 3 consecutive days. And I always look to minimize and save where we can, and I will continue to minimize the size and save where we can.
I move to approve the alcohol beverage license applications for the licensing period of July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023, subject to payment of any outstanding fees and monies owed to the city by all applicants prior to issuance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. 10B is the review and possible action relating to cigarette and tobacco products retail license applications for the licensing period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. To apply to sell cigarette tobacco products, it is a brief 1-page application. The form is set out by Department of Revenue. Fill out the information, answer questions that are yes or no, confirming that they purchase products appropriately from distributors, and they make sure they card everyone and only sell to those that are of legal age. Background checks are not required. There's no inspection of the premises that's required. There's no restrictions on sales of hours or anything. It's just making sure that the person purchasing them is of age. Again, I always mention it's not required that it's approved by the board, but to me, being a license that's issued, I'd like to present it to the council so you're well aware of this, especially because you have to be a certain age to buy these products. The fee is $100 per year. They do have to renew it every year, and that's the maximum that can be charged by statute.
Michelle, can I ask, because I know we adopted an ordinance about for new businesses that would sell tobacco products, the distance they would have to be from a school. Is that now part of the city's application for someone who would come forward to want to sell those products?
No, but would somebody, it's not part of the application, but should someone call and say they're interested in this, that's where I find out where the business would be
Okay.
located. And that's what I would do some research before I say, sure, come on in and fill it out. I'd look to see where the business is located. I also usually call Police Chief Bump and just kind of say, hey, I had this inquiry.
Mhm.
I want you to know this person's looking at this location for that. We try to keep in tune with each other on a few of those things.
Thank you.
I will go ahead and move to approve the cigarette and tobacco products retail license applications for the licensing period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, subject to payment of any outstanding fees and monies owed to the city by all applicants prior to issuance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. 10C is the discussion and possible action relating to a vehicle damage claim against the city of Fort Atkinson from an incident on May 13th, 2022.
Thank you. So on the day of Friday, May 13th, I had a local resident call me and state that they were pulling into the Lions Park parking lot, and they went over the edge of the blacktop, and it had been loose on the side, and they kicked up and loosened blacktop, and then it damaged their car. I said, okay, well, they called Public Works, and Public Works came out and fixed it. She called the police department. They came out and did a report, and as appropriately, she went and got an estimate and repaired her car. When something like to this nature happens and someone says, well, will the city pay for it? I say, well, you can file a loss reporting form to the city. We would submit to our insurance company and they would do investigation. Just like if any of you were to have an instance with the vehicle, you contact your insurance, or if you felt that it was, someone else's fault, for lack of a better term. So I submitted this to insurance. The claimant submitted photos of the parking lot also in their vehicle and the estimate. Our Public Works crew, they were out actually that day filling potholes. This was before Robert Street Bridge closed. So they were taking advantage of the less busy Main Street, and I caught the gentleman there outside and they went right over there. I was informing them just as they got the call to inspect the area. Public Works Supervisor Nick Wraith took photos upon arrival of the crew and took photos once it was done and once it was repaired. So knowing that that's repaired is a good thing. Insurance company does investigation, and once I submit all the information to them, they reach out to say, who can we talk to about this? So I started with the Public Works Department, Superintendent Williamson, as his crew was on site afterwards to repair. So they asked some questions of him, if they knew about it, what did they do to fix the area, and then if it's something that's regularly inspected, or if they're aware about it. He answered his questions best as they can, but however, this being one of our parks, it's more often that our Park and Rec department would kind of keep tabs on this area. So then we deferred the questions to Park and Rec Director Brooke Francine. She forwarded to her foreman, JJ Yankee, and asked the same questions of him. Were you aware of the crack in the blacktop? Were you aware that it was damaged? And staff was not aware in following the investigation. So there was no known that it was in disarray or that it needed repair. So following the review of the insurance company, they provided me a letter stating that the claim should be disallowed because they did not find the city to be at fault for this. So procedure is actually set forth by state statute. So once the insurance company provided that the city is not liable for that, the next step would be the disallowance of the claim, which is done by the governing body. A letter would be sent to the claimant stating that it was disallowed, and if they're interested, they could follow suit under the claim that state statutes allowed with 6 months of the date of the notice of the disallowance. Does anyone have any questions?
I guess my only question is, obviously city employees cannot be everywhere, all the time, every day. But I'm just curious if there's kind of a standard, since this was a city park, is there a standard, this is how often parks employees are in each of our parks to be made aware of issues or issues that may cause problems for residents? Are we having weeks at a time that we don't have a staff member at our own facilities or our own parks?
They do daily rounds of all of our parks. So I mean, while they're not inspecting every piece of asphalt every time they are in the parks, anything major that was discovered would certainly be addressed.
Okay.
Can I add something into that as well?
Yeah, please.
Something I had let the insurance lady know as well is that for Lions Park, we empty those garbages Mondays and Fridays. So after the weekend and then before the weekend. And this incident happened on a Friday, and it happened, I believe, around 9:30 in the morning. So we had yet to do a park round at Lions Park before the lady did the damage to her car.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, these are never fun. I just had to spend several $100s myself on an unexpected car repair today, so I empathize, but I think we have to look out for residents at large on this, and we have to go with the recommendation from our designated insurance company. I'll go ahead and make the motion to disallow the claim against the city of Fort Atkinson from Norma Navarro for vehicle damage from an incident on May 13th, 2022 pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 893.801G and as recommended by the city's insurance carrier and staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 11, miscellaneous. This evening we have none. Agenda item 12, claims appropriations and contract payments. 12A is the review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorize payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This will be a roll call.
Yeah, I've
vote.
got a question. Was there anything unexpected? Anything unexpected? Anything that is trending either above or behind plan for claims for the year?
Not off the top of my head. I will say earlier this year, we did see an uptick in the fuel charges or the gas charges for the Public Works Department. If you've realized our building is in disarray, so it costs a little more to heat the building in the wintertime. So we always see an uptick in expenses there. It's already starting to kind of dwindle down, and it kind of levels towards year end. Fuel prices have gone kind of up and down, but I believe that our Public Works was able to kind of negotiate a good fuel price. So then we have tanks that our departments fill at, and then they're charged kind of a discounted rate for everyone. I don't think there was anything out of near in the claims. The second meeting of this month is when I present the financials for the prior month. And that's always when I kind of go through each account a little more with a fine tooth comb and kind of inspect and monitor anything there that seems out of the ordinary, or any accounts that may be more than expended for the year for what we've passed.
Yeah, that report always includes the percentage of total. So we can look down the last column there and see where we're at as far as revenues and expenditures in each account compared to the total budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item 13, the city council may consider a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to state statute 19.851E to deliberate public business with competitive or bargaining implications.
I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to state statute 19.851E to deliberate public business with competitive or bargaining implications relating to the purchase and or sale of public properties and a possible development agreement.
Will we be coming back into open?
We will not be coming back into open session.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye, that motion carries. We will move into our closed session.